Mm. Oh, what's that?
What's that? What's that? It's only a bit of history, Rog.
No, that's message then.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So I just wanted to, well, I just wanted to say a couple of things really. Today's class on the footprints was brilliant, and it was brilliant on Tuesday, and I think really in many ways we connected with something that was so close to events in the past but so far away, and you know, I just wanted to say that. So obviously we'll be back next week, and I did mention earlier on that Richard's been in hospital, but he is getting better. And obviously I wanted to look at Capability Brown for the reason that you know, we mention him a lot, but we know nothing about him, and I just wanted to do this, and it links us in with everything that we've been doing, because, you know, looking out at a vista, looking out at the line, is all down to this guy, Capability Brown. So you're looking into the eyes. So if you, as somebody who's famous in history for a specific thing, is Capability Brown, right? And you know, we think about Wren, and we think about the Fire of London, and we think about the 1600s, and you know, you're thinking about all his great works, and then you think about somebody like Capability Brown, and his influence is everywhere. And Roger mentioned something about a wall a few minutes ago, and I just thought, yes, we've got to think, and we've got to go in this direction, because it's something, as I say, I should have done a long time ago. So this chap was born on the 30th of August 1716, know it well, and died on the 6th of February 1783. And he was known as Lancelot Brown. In other words, Capability Brown. He was capable of anything if it was involving architecture. He was an English gardener, but his influence swayed over the border into our wonderful land, and elsewhere. A gardener and a landscape architect, and what he did, he brought a new sense of meaning on a landscape that could be said to have been lost in Arthur and various other things, and things that go bump in and out. And suddenly you got the likes of Capability Brown, and who remains the most famous figure in the history of the English landscape garden style, or in the history of the landscape garden, really, because, you know, if you go to any National Trust place, its Capability Brown is always going to be mentioned, because most houses and most properties that the National Trust own are those grand houses, and one of them is Longleat, and that is Capability Brown. Is Capability's Brown's influence at Longleat. He is remembered as quote, the last of the great English artists from the 1700s to be accorded his due. In other words, he is a great one up there, and this painting itself is by a Nathaniel Dance, painted in 1773, 10 years before Capability Brown's death. He's from Northumberland, and again, Northumberland. He's from Northumberland. What the hell is somebody from Northumberland doing, going across the whole of Britain, reorganizing gardens? And he did. He died at around the age of 68. And he had 7 children, and there you go. And he was married to a Bridget Wyatt. Bridget Wyatt. So again, if we slowly think about that guy's face, and we think about what he's thinking, and we think about him reorganizing the landscape. And when this image was taken, when I say taken, painted, it almost looks like a photograph, doesn't it? And that's what it's meant to look like. When this image was offered to us by the artist, of an artist, he was 57 years old, 58 years old, and his influence was at that point at its peak. Unlike other architects, he was not just interested in a landscape, he was a gardener. And he offered a full service. So in other words, if somebody brought him in, it wouldn't be right, we'll just chuck a load of trees over there, or we'll flatten that little bit over there, and we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that thing over there, right? Basically, he did everything. He was a proper landscaper. You know, modern landscapers today offer their thanks to Capability Brown. You know, when you think about a landscaper today, a landscaper sort of brings in digger and will do everything for you, including decking, putting statues up there and sort of pathways and flower beds and trees and water features and this and that and whatever. This is all thanks to Capability Brown. That's what a landscaper does these days. Planting, parks, gardens, everything. This is the man. And he is most famous for those landscape parks of not public places, but English country houses. So you're thinking, well, hang on a minute, this is purely an architectural lecture today. What's this got to do with Ingold and the line? Well, it's got actually everything to do with Ingold and the line, but this Capability Brown was interchange, right? If it was in his way, it was going. If it affected your view, if it affected the vista, if it was in the way, if it didn't add up, if it wasn't meant to be, it was to go. And is Capability Brown one of the great destroyers of our history and archaeology? Well, then again, it's change, isn't it? It's change. So let's just not accuse him of that. We can accuse him of being massively influential. We can accuse him of being the great mover and shaker of what was going on in the 1700s. He also included in his plans pleasure gardens. What a word, pleasure gardens. Gardens of great pleasure which were adorned with mass amounts of flowers, shrubberies, and basically anything that he created was not to obstruct the view across the park or the main facade of the house. So what we're talking about is this man would have to play Jenga with everything that was out there, and hopefully everything will work. So few of his plantings of pleasure gardens have actually survived later changes, and few of his original plans have, few of his original plans have remained the same. But then again, it was 250 years ago, so it's a long time. He submitted plans for, he was a great producer of plans and ideas, and in a way, he probably was planning and working on organizing gardens all over the place at the same time. He has it in many pies. So when you think about it, there's no way he could have designed. There's no way he could have designed 170 parks and been involved in dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of landscapes without sort of going away for a little bit and saying, right, what we need to flatten that over there. We'll put a load of trees there, and I'll come back in a month. Right. So there were lots of things on the go. There was criticism of his style, and this is what we're going to look at. There was criticism of his style, both in his own day and subsequently, mostly centering on the claim that he created identical landscapes with the main house in a sea of turf. Some water, albeit often as an impressive feature, and trees in clumps and shelter belts. A uniformity equating to authoritarianism. But the thing is, why not? What what's bloody wrong with organizing a landscape? These people wanted order, and they, and the other thing as well is, right, I had this conversation with somebody recently about the idea of the original lawnmower, right? The hand lawnmower was invented in 1830. So how the hell did they cut these lawns that Capability Brown is creating? Are you going to have flocks of sheep, or are you going to cut it all by hand, right? And yes, lots of it would have been cut by hand. This idea, I've got 6 sheep; they're absolutely bloody useless, right? We've got grass growing everywhere, and usually the sheep look at you and say, "Oh well, I'll eat a bit of that tomorrow." You're supposed to be eating the grass. So, what Capability Brown is doing is creating the impossible, but he didn't. Some people could argue that he lacked a sense of imagination, but then again, this was an imagination that he was organizing the landscape in a checkerboard fashion and a checkerboard arrangement, like we saw Bruegel the other week. When we were looking at Bruegel, what we did see about Bruegel was that there was order in Bruegel's art, and we saw Bruegel organizing things. There would be a backdrop. There would be lots of things going on in the backdrop, as we remember, and there'd be lots going on in the forefront, and sort of there'd be a lot going on, a lot of organization. And in a way, architecture and art is about organization, a bit like archaeology. He designed more than 170 parks, many of which survive. Now that's so he died at 68, right? Within those years, within about 40 years, he's involved with 170 parks and designs with lots of other areas as well. So he was nicknamed Capability because he would tell his clients that the property had capability for improvement. So in other words, he would go to you and say, right, let's change what we're doing. Let's see and change what we're doing. So obviously those 170 gardens. Now, I tell you what, we're talking about some of the great famous gardens: Blenheim, Warwick Castle. We're talking about Belvedere Castle, Croom Court, Harewood House. Now we know Harewood House. That's obviously come up a few times recently. Harewood House, and this one here. This itself. Hang on, I just had this up here a minute. Hang on a minute. We'll come on to that one in a minute. Barrington. Hang on, it's not the one I wanted. Hang on, this one. We wanted this one first. I didn't want Barrington. I wanted this one, which is Badminton House. Features of the Capability Brown landscape at full maturity in the 1800s. So this was the way all that cleared. A water feature in front of you. It's all part of that sort of sense of projection. And also, there's something else that would ring a bell, and it was back in Barrington House, which was the one before. Now, there's a feature there that would maybe be something that you would understand, or you might not understand. It's called a ha-ha. And it's that wall there. It's a ha-ha, right? What a ha-ha is, it projects the lawn above the level of what's below it. So basically, anyone sort of wandering below that wall couldn't see above, but you can see down below onto them, right? And I'm pretty sure, and the reason why I mentioned what I'm about to say, right, I'm pretty sure that when I went to Chirk Castle, that landscape at Chirk Castle, obviously in northeast Wales, was actually designed by Capability Brown. There's a ha-ha there, and actually in the distance, right, there was let me get this right. hang on. I'm trying to get the dike right. Watts, offers, Watts. Yeah, offers dike. Basically, there was offers dike just in view of the house, so he had it levelled. He flattened offers dike. That wouldn't happen today, but it was in the way, and and basically started to become big time in 1741. He became part of gardening staff and an under gardener at Stowe House in Buckinghamshire. What's that, Rog?
The sun's coming through.
The sun's coming through. Thanks, Rog. I really wanted to know that, Rog. Cheers.
Well, that's okay. That's your life.
Yeah, cheers, Rob. Cheers, Roger. I don't mind me. Don't mind me. So one thing is he really started to come into his own, and he was designing stuff at Stowe in 1750. Then he became freelance. 1751. Then he's going out and he's involved with Warwick, for example. And basically he's involved with Warwick. Capability Warwick Castle. So Capability Brown, 1751. His reputation was beginning to be known as a designer, somebody who could get things done. And Horace Walpole wrote somewhat slightingly of Brown's work at Warwick Castle, for example, in 1751. The castle is enchanting. The view pleased me more than I can express. The river Avon tumbles down a cascade at the foot of it. It is well laid out by one Brown, who has set up on a few ideas of previous architecture. And, he's out there sort of from 1760. He's even appointed by King George III. So, he's out there. He's out there, and he's sort of influencing. So we mentioned 170 of these gardens that he's very much responsible for, the landscaping and sort of architectural features as well, building features as well. It's all going on. And if the buildings were in the way and they didn't suit, they would be knocked down as well. So Badminton House. So what he wanted, and you can sort of see it there in front of you, can't you, from this work from the 1800s. He believed in the, hang on a minute. Oh, look at that there. I wanted to show a bit more of that. He believed in this idea of smooth, undulating grass, right? Sort of undulation, right? Obviously, okay, sweeping grass. That should be smooth grass sweeping away in the distance, which would run straight to the house. Basically, with that, you might have little clumps, little trees, scatterings of trees, serpentine lakes by invisibly damming small rivers. And this is what he was adding to this new landscape, English landscape. And it's said that his landscape gardening was a gardenless form. So in other words, what we're talking about is that it swept away almost all the remnants of previous formal pattern styles. And what he believed was, right, we've got to get straight down to the Endies. We need to get this laid out, and this is the way it's to work. And we've got to, this is a, so he really liked his ponds. He really liked his fish ponds. He really liked to sort of reorganize earlier ponds. And I do believe if, and there's this pond here, which is a place known as Sandalford in Berkshire. This is one of Brown's ponds. So basically, eventually, these ponds would become great sort of mini micro wildernesses. So his landscapes were at the forefront of fashion. It was fashionable. This was the dandy and macaroni stage. Sort of macaronis would have those long sort of trailing hairs going up in with sort of white faces, with sort of and then dandies would be somebody who would sort of dress very posh. Is that sort of period that we're talking about? So his landscapes were at the forefront of fashion. They were fundamentally different from what they replaced. Again, if it was in the way it was to go. I've worked for a gardening company. Right? I've worked for three, maybe two. And I remember there was this one gardening company. They sort of believed if it was there, right, just leave it and just like work around it. I worked for another gardening company that if anything was in the way, and you know, they would sweep it all. They would just get rid of everything and it would start again, right? That's sort of capability Brown thinking, right? So previously you would sort of work around it and you'd sort of, you know, make do and sort of make sure the path is sort of going around it, sort of capability Brown, which I can path through it. Right. So that's the difference. And in many ways, right, you know, when we talk about Tim Ingold and we talk about sort of the layers and we talk about the sort of built up environment and we talk about the complexities of what Tim Ingold has given us in regards to sort of these, you know, everything that we're talking about with Tim Ingold. In many ways, what capability Brown is the opposite of what Tim Ingold is saying. So what Tim Ingold is saying is that everything that exists is like a multifaceted landscape. It's sort of interweaved into that sort of sense of the line. But what capability said that if it didn't work, it was to go, and there was no sense of that sort of continuity or sort of cosmopolitan landscape. That would be the previous thing. But then again, what capability Brown is doing, he's just basically setting the die for everything to start again, everything to start anew. So anything sort of would be replaced, and you know, they were fundamentally different from anything before, and also he was very much at Hampton Court. So interesting enough, he was at Hampton Court. So 1782, and obviously we know when we're thinking about capability Brown, he died in 1783. So he was at Hampton Court in 1782. And sort of what we do think about this is that this is, you know, capability Brown had a way of sort of describing landscapes, and he would describe other people's work in a methodical way, because there would be a certain Hannah More in 1782, and Hannah More in 1782 described what she felt about capability's work at Hampton Court. So this is what she said in 1782. Now there, said he, pointing his finger, I make a comma, and there's pointing to another spot where a more decided turn is proper. I make a colon at another part where an interruption is desirable to break the view. Now a full stop, and then I begin another subject. So in other words, what we're talking about is everything has to be organized and within some kind of idealistic way of how the landscape should be organized. So, but the thing is, if we want to be critical of capability Brown, the problem with being critical about capability Brown is that most of the people wanted to have gardens like everybody else, whether it was the right or the wrong thing to do. You've got a garden where you can look out from the main windows of the house and you can just see green grass and you can see a lake by there, and over on the left is trees and over on the right is trees, and over in the distance is a little folly, and over there's a little folly, and over there's a little garden in the distance. This is what people wanted. Oh, there's a summer house in the garden. That'll do. We'll chuck a summer house in there. So, and one of the things that we are talking about is this idea of bringing other architectural styles to bear. And other architectural styles to bear. Look at this, and I'm sure you've seen this in a number of films. This is Blenheim Palace again. Now, that looks like something that you might find in Italy. Look how garish that is. A very sort of Renaissance looking, very sort of in the moment at Blenheim Palace gardens. So what we've got this sort of bridge, this feature, and it's said that Capability Brown dammed the stream there, which was the Poultry Stream, and basically what happened. What happened was that by damming the river, this part of this bridge was submerged. So in many ways, this bridge is there, and it's semi-submerged. Half of it's submerged, and so what Capability Brown wanted is not for other things to dominate the landscape. He wanted his ideas to dominate the landscape. So if your ideas are going to dominate the landscape, and this bridge is standing out, and it's sort of very Renaissance looking, what you need to do is build up the water level, dam it, and drown half of the building. That was the sort of sense of what Capability Brown wanted to do. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to sort of look at some of Capability Brown's works, and we've got a little bit of an article of the week. So if I can just do that. Hang on. This phone half backwards. Hang on a minute. Oh, right, yeah, sorry, I was reading it wrong. Hang on. Right, so what we got this little article. I want to do this little article, right? So it's the landscape legacy of Capability Brown. So people write about Capability Brown, keep mentioning him. So what we've got is that, look at that. So again, what he's done is he's created these lakes. He's dammed the lakes. Again, look at Blenheim. So here we go. One of the early admirers of Capability Brown's work at Blenheim was King George III, who, on passing through Woodstock Gate in 1786, is said to have exclaimed, "We have nothing to equal this." And you're thinking that is, hang on a minute. Where's it? There's that image again. Look at that. It's amazing, isn't it? So, what he's done, in other words, he's flooded the landscape to sort of offer a view from the house over the bridge. And on the left, you've got water. On the right, you've got water. And obviously, inevitably, lots of these trees have been planted since and whatever. But so you can imagine that those two trees on the side of the bridge wouldn't have been there, right? And there's no shadow. That's the thing. You've got shadow. You don't want to see shadow. You just want to see the grass. You just want to see what's approaching. This isn't a military thing. You want to have a mind's eye on the landscape. So this is what we're talking about. So great fan of Capability Brown was King George III. Now, is that a word to use? Revolutionary landscaper Capability Brown transformed Britain's stately home gardens with his designs. Here are a few examples of exquisite work. And you think, well, in many ways, our landscape is very controlled, very sort of contrived, and it's organized, right? Unlike lots of palaces elsewhere. So you might go to some of the palaces of the King Louis in France, and you might see all these formal gardens and this clutter, and there's little statues over there. Oh, we'll chuck a pond there. We'll have a tree there. We'll have a bit of a garden there. Oh, we'll have a little area there, little green. Right. Oh yeah. By the way, over there we'll have a little bit of a summer house. When you look at continental stuff, it's really cluttered. French stuff, Italian stuff. The problem with Italy is that Italy needs to. Italy's more of a focused sort of a thing, because when you think about it, it doesn't have the great vast landscapes that we do. So in other words, Capability Brown is very much restylizing the landscape. Now look at that there, Longleat House. And you're thinking, right, what's going on here? Okay, well, all right, then we'll chuck we'll chuck the formal gardens at the rear. That's fine. That can stay, right? But what we are going to do is on the approach to Longleat House. Hang on a minute. On the approach to Longleat House, look at that. You go down this long drive, right? And even the long drive is not broken up by trees. There's no trees flanking it. There's no sort of arcade of trees, right? You're looking out the window and you're looking down the line, following the line, and knowing what's coming at you, being able to see and look into the eyes of whoever's coming at you down this long drive. And obviously you've got two sets of flanking trees, very, very, very low height-wise trees on the left and the right. And obviously you've got the woodland either side, but the woodland is set back. Be damned if you're going to have woodland associated with this great vista, this great view, because you are damned, because the Capability Brown didn't believe in that. He believed that this should be organized, should have a sense of perspective, should have a sense of meaning, and should have a sense of understanding. And again, Longleat, I saw an image of it earlier on. Initially, directly in front of Longleat, there was all these formal gardens, and it was really sort of organised, but it looked really cluttered. Capability Brown said, "Sod that, we're not going to have that. We're just going to have this." And again, the idea of cutting the grass seems like a bloody nightmare, but they managed it. They actually managed it, and there's a job for you, and for the rest of your life, cutting the grass with a pair of scissors at Longleat. Yeah, and it is that thing, isn't it? You know, we think about, you know, Longleat, the parkland, and we think about, you know, and also we sort of look at this and we think, oh, you know, there's a water course on the left as well, so that's sort of following the line. That's sort of you can see that, and that's the thing. Even though this looks like a mature landscape today, it was not mature back then. Lots of things have changed, but again, that sort of moving, get rid of all those formal gardens, all that all the statues, all the water features and stuff, just flatten it, get rid of it, and then what you've got is the grass, and then you can sort of flank it with these trees and the roadway, and you've got the natural river on the left, and you've got the trees over there on the right. This is all sort of, yeah, in many ways, sort of, when you think about it, Capability Brown's ideas are quite brutal, because they don't wish to take account of anything that's gone by before. But however, what is still there is the building. You know, he's not saying, oh, what I tell you what we'll do, we'll demolish everything, right, and we'll just put up a new building. But what he's doing, he's using the building as a backdrop to try and reach out there to hold in, and you know, in many ways, when you've cleared the trees, which I don't agree with cutting down a single tree, but in his eyes, it made the world a lot bigger, and it is a much vaster landscape when you've got rid of all the dross. That's where he felt. You just get rid of all the gardens and stuff. So the revolutionary landscape style that Lancelot Capability Brown brought to the great houses of England in the 1700s is now synonymous with our image of stately homes, National Trust, Hartown. The likes of William Kent and Humphrey Repton, also two other names that cannot be lost in the story, predecessors to Capability Brown. So there you go. The likes of William Kent. So what we're doing, Capability Brown is going out there and saying, look, what we want to do is we want to do something new. We want to get rid of the idea of Tudor gardens, Dutch and French gardens. What Capability Brown was doing was offering a new style, right? And there's an important point to be made here, and it must not be lost. Right, it must not be lost. This is a very important point. When Capability Brown is born in 1716, why is that significant? Well, we were going for a new revolution of kings, Hanoverian kings, We've got William and Mary, we've got Anne, we've got the Georges, right? And what we've got is that we've got the place to try and put where Capability Brown is thinking is the place that we need a new identity in Britain, right? What do I mean by that? Well, you get historians like William Stukeley, and in William Stukeley in the early 1700s, and you've got Aubrey as well in the late 1600s, 1700s, and they've been tasked with trying to find a sense of our identity and our history and archaeology. At the same time, you've got new ideas coming to the forefront, such as who are we? Are we British? And this is the thing: people wanted to be British, and they were pushing this Britishness. And the Hanoverians are definitely British. Hanover and all the rest of it is certainly not British. But what was going around was that we needed the royal family were there to hopefully unite us all. Just think about it. It was only in 1716 that we've got the great, we've got one of the Jacobite rebellions, and the leaders of Britain wanted to have a sense of Britishness. And this goes in with the gardens. By the time Capability Brown is well into his throes in the 1740s, 70s, 50s, 70s, 60s, Capability Brown is within that moment of evolution, of finding a British identity, and getting rid of our looking towards the Dutch for a sense of organising our gardens, and keeping away from organising our gardens on the French manner, which was completely higgledy-piggledy and all over the bloody place. And what we'll do, we'll get rid of the idea of the Tudor gardens as well. That's just, Tudor gardens are based on the Italian way anyway, really, when you think about it. So what Capability Brown was in that new invention, just chuck it all away, right, and start again. Chuck everything that happened before is just confusing, and just, so now you know why monuments are being ripped down. Now you know why the likes of Offa Dyke being filled in and all the rest of it, because what Capability Brown wanted to do is say, forget about everything that happened before. This is our new identity. This is where we are. We're organised. We're British, right? And we're British. And what we're going to do, he wasn't thinking like this, but maybe. But by the time you get to the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, the reason why we're good at firing cannons on board a ship is because we're bloody organised, right? We've got a new way of doing things, right? And we've got a way of doing our gardens as well. We've got a way of doing our history. It's all there, right? It's all linked. It's all that sense. So when you think about Tim Ingold, in many ways, what's going on in the 1700s is an anathema. It's something evil. It's something not tying in with the line. But in many ways it is, because what Capability Brown was tasked with, what William Stukeley was tasked with, and even the likes of Edward Williams, Iolo Morgana at the end of the 1700s, was to dig out an identity from Britain and then invent the rest. And what Capability Brown was said, we'll keep that bit, we'll invent the rest. And this is what happened. This is what people were doing in the 1700s. They were inventing our history, and we're still living with it today. We're still living with that backdrop of inventing our history. The difference between, say, Capability of Brown and Wren is that when Wren's about in the Great Fire of London, 1665, 1666, and he's redesigning London and St. Paul's and all the rest of it. When he's redesigning London, he harks back to the past. You know, if we're going to have an identity, he harks back to the past, right? But Capability Brown was very different, and lots of these other people in the 1700s were different, because what they needed to do, they needed to leave the past, and they were up against this Jacobite, these bloody Jacobites. They're living in the past. They freaking Scottish people, and they're living in the past, right? And what they wanted to do was they wanted to find a new way. And there we go. There it is. There it reads, but it is Brown who is most famous for the landscape tradition that came to epitomize Englishness. That's everything I just said. Setting our grand houses in artful, contrived Edens of parkland. I think that's a really good way of putting it, don't you think? And hang on a minute, in the year of the English garden, I don't know when that is. Anyway, when was the year of the English garden? I don't know when this bloody piece was written. So here we go. Here are some examples of Capability Brown's work. So there we go. Blenheim Palace. We've mentioned that, and we say go through the Woodstock Gate, and we see that, and we've got nothing to equate to this. But what capability? What King George is talking about, what's happening in London and all the bloody rest of it, because King George was in a way looking at a backdrop in London that was Rhenish, right, and it was out of date. What Wren had created in London was like a harking back to the past. What Brown was doing was to sort of, we want something new. We want this openness. We want this sort of non-Francophile. We wanted to go out there. Look at that sort of, and then what you've got is view from the terrace of Bowood House in Wiltshire, where a pond replaced a hamlet of houses. What bloody hell? Capability Brown didn't care about. You're looking from this, and if there are houses in the way, you rip them down. Not interested in the houses. Now, Capability Brown's not vilified by the National Trust, right? And there's a parallel which I'm going to make here, and I don't know if you can really understand what I'm getting at, but I bloody do, right? I'm a great fan of what Mussolini did in Italy, and well before the Second World War. He put billions of pounds into archaeology. He removed all the crap in the center of Rome and allowed Rome to breathe. Right, so he removed all that sort of Renaissance crap. He removed all the I'm using the word crap, right, because what I'm trying to do is make a point, right? I'm not saying I agree with what Mussolini did, but what he did was he removed all that stuff that made Rome suffocate, right? And he opened it up. He had these great plazas that went into the heart of Rome that people can appreciate today. All those, as people are able to go to Rome today, they're able to breathe thanks to the clearance works of Mussolini, right? Because what we do see is it's not just Capability Brown and the likes of Mussolini. Napoleon felt the same thing, that you clear all this stuff that happened before, and if you're going to be a new country, right, not living in the past, you need to get rid of all the dross, right, and you need to have the plazas, you need to have the roadways, and you need to allow it to free itself up. And that's exactly what Brown was saying, which is a complete anathema to what Tim Ingold was trying to say, that you've got to have all these multi-layers. But is Tim Ingold one of the dinosaurs? I say no, because what Tim Ingold is saying is that there's change. And in fact, Capability Brown is not at odds with what Tim Ingold is saying with everything's multifaceted in a landscape. Change happens. I'm going to say it. Excuse my French. Shit happens, right? Apologize for that, but it does happen. Change has got to occur, and this is what's happening. Bowood House, let's get rid of all those houses in front, right? It's in the way, right? And what we're going to do, we're going to be able to look out across the landscape, right? From here, across the veranda, we're going to look at the water, and it's beautiful, right? Don't think that I feel that knocking down those houses was the right thing, but at the time it was the right thing. It was the right thing to do. And I tell you what, guys, those houses may have been real hovels anyway. So let's just get rid of them and give new houses for the workers. And lots of these estates did. They weren't as bad as people make them out to be. And remember, I know Anne's going to probably disagree with this because she's the arty person. our Renaissance in Britain was the 1700s, right? Wren was a stick in the mud. He reshaped London, but that was after London had been settled like anyway. The 1700s is our Renaissance. It's our way of speaking. It's our way of dominating. And we did do that. Well, it wasn't successful in North America, but when we come across Napoleon, and when we come across the way Napoleon wanted to shape Europe and the way we wanted to shape Europe, we were at odds. But then again, there's a bit of a problem there. In a way, what Napoleon wanted to achieve in Europe was exactly what Britain wanted to achieve in Europe, because it is at odds when you look at the argument. Because when you look at France wants sort of a united Europe, and it wants everyone trading and working together, right? Britain wanted the same thing. They wanted everybody trading and working together in Europe, and we're friends with the bloody Portuguese and Spanish, and the French are friends with the bloody Austrians and the Italians and all the bloody rest of it, right? So again, I apologize for my language today, but I just wanted to get into this, and we are into it. And there we go. Capability Brown. This is, remember, there's 170 of these gardens, plus there's probably more. A Burley house. And there we go. You're looking at that and thinking, well, actually, that's quite suffocating. But it's not suffocating when you look at it the other way around, because when you think about looking at it from the other way around, the windows looking downwards, right? You do have the trackway, you do have and these would have been tiny little shrubs. So whatever was there had gone, right? So what it was restylizing the landscape, there was a vista, and I don't really know how many of these bloody shrubs have been planted since. I would say this is not all Capability Brown, but what you can see, take those shrubs away from the house looking down towards you, this is what Capability wanted to give us. And look at that there. This is Weston Park in Shrewsbury. Typically naturalistic, and look at that there. So what you've got the main house there, and you're looking out. This isn't exactly Capability Brown, but this is based on the sense of what Capability Brown wanted to see. So what you've got in front, when you're looking out, you've got the grass, you've got the roadways, and you've got the trees on the left and right. And you're looking out into the distance. Being able to see the distance, being able to see the view. You know, when I get up in the morning, I look out and you've got a beautiful view, right? There's nothing in the way. Like, there's no buildings, there's no nothing. And I can look out, I can look for 15 miles into the distance, right? And there's nothing in the way. That's because I'm on a hill and we undulate, and it's sort of whatever. Capability Brown would have loved this, right? But what he would have done, he would have removed all the hedges in front, and he would have got the hedges all the way removed, all the way down to the main road. Right. Other than that, it's Capability Brownish here. So what I'm going to do is, if I can sort of go and look at a few more images. Right, hang on a minute. Anne, you were going to say something.
No, I just think you know it's the growth of materialism, you know, and like the end of Catholicism, and all the churches were burnt, and all the destruction that went on throughout the landscape. Yes. And then, you know, the like you say, the Tudor style were much taller houses.
Yeah.
And I think the landscape was to do with these new Georgian houses, you know, the new architecture of long houses, you know, with maybe 2 or 3 floors. But also they had windows, better windows. So they were looking out, like you say, they were looking out to the landscape. And, you know, somebody said they needed a different view. They needed this sort of clean cut sort of view, you know.
And the image that we're seeing in front of us now is that hang on a minute. Oh God, hang on. Accept that. Go. So look at that. That is sort of archetypal. Western Park. That is everything that Capability Brown stood for.
Yeah.
You are right. There's new windows. This sort of new Georgian architecture, and what the Georgian architecture needed to aspire to was reorganization. And the only way you could get reorganization was to clear all the gardens and all the stuff that had existed before. And what you've got people looking out at those windows, and you've got a massive lawn, and you've got those little beasts eating the grass. My sheep are absolutely bloody useless because they don't eat much of the grass. But obviously you've got the sheep grazing there, and they are doing a pretty good job, because you don't have sort of hand mowers until really until about 1830, as I looked it up.
It's like open plan, isn't it? You know, when we went
Yes.
to all our houses being all in little rooms, to being like knocking the walls down and, you know, seeing a bigger vista, you know. I know I'm talking totally the wrong, you know, talking about the building.
No, I don't think you are. No. You are talking about Tim Ingle. What you're saying is that everything's linked, and that's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
You are.
It's just modern. It's modern. You know, I think that's a modern idea, to get rid of everything and just place, you know, your trees or whatever in the landscape, you know. And of course, it's got a lot to do with painting as well, because they only ever had paintings of like portraits until the 1700s, or that sort of era. There was only ever portraits in England, whereas
then
now,
suddenly, Anne, go and say it. Suddenly, you've got Constable.
Suddenly, you've got starting to get landscape. Yeah.
Exactly. Suddenly, you've got Constable at the end of the 1700s.
Constable, yeah.
Yeah, and Constable is basically telling us this story. And you know, you've got,
they're looking looking outside.
Yeah, oh no, not Constable. Sorry, Anne, you should have corrected me. I meant Turner. Then you've got Constable.
Gainsborough, you know.
Yeah, exactly. You should have known better. You should have corrected me then. I meant Turner, but Turner and Constable. Constable's obviously then leading on to an adaptation of this sort of world, this landscape, this stuff outside. Yeah, you're right. You're right. So, and this thing about the architecture, you know. In one thing that what we've done, we focused on looking out onto the landscape, but looking at the house as well. As King George said, as he looked and he went over that bridge and he went towards Blenheim Palace, and he thought, bloody hell, we've got nothing like this. You know, this is new. What's Constable? Not Constable. Bloody hell. What's Brown doing? Right, and when you look at this, you look within the trees, and these very old trees here. The one on the left, I think that's probably going to be dating from the late 1700s. The one on the right isn't. But there you go, Broom Park, Worcestershire, and it's talking about there's lots of little stories about this. And it's sort of to the memory of Lancelot Brown, who by the powers of his inimitable and creative genius formed this garden out of a morass. So this is what we're saying. I think that sort of says it all, doesn't it? When we're talking about crewmates at the house, and we're talking about what we're doing is instead of dealing with all this stuff, he's just basically rip it up and start again. As you said, this is what's happening. There's so many different things there, and obviously Blenheim Palace as well. It's so organized, it's so gentle, and you've got the bridge there, which is half the height, because the river's been flooded, and you've got these islands being created, right? You've got little islands, and that's going to be wonderful to see from the house, and the water, looking out at water, that's going to be very, very calming. This great lake. Sort of, if we sort of keep that there, and what we'll do, we'll wind up in a few moments. Bloody hell, I didn't think we'd do an hour on this. So Capability also produced 100 individual architectural drawings. Some of the landscapes were obviously the same because it was like this authoritarian supposed way that he did things. And his work in the field of architecture was a natural outgrowth of his unified picture of the English country house in its setting. In Brown's hands, the house, which before had dominated the estate, became an integral part of a carefully composed landscape. Now, I think that's really important that the house is now the landscape, not the house being the be all and end all. Because I think the important point here, Anne, is that, you know, the gardens before this, the gardens were like a second thought. You know, we took a garden on there. Look how big my house is. It's massive. You know, look at it. I've got 20 chimneys and I've got 100 windows. Look how good I am. What Capability Brown was saying, hang on a minute, right? You've got to do something other than just focus on the house. So this all became as it is. You know, your eyes are drawn to the landscape and the house and the bridge and the water. Your mind is thinking. It's not just drawn to the house. That's the point. So it became an integral part of a carefully composed landscape intended to be seen through the eyes of a painter. You mentioned Gainsborough, and its design could not be divorced from that of the garden. And Anne, I can't divorce myself from that image. Right, because it you know, I'm all over the place. I'm trying to, what am I focusing on? Oh my God, you've got a little bit of a shadow in the lake of the house. You know, you see that there. And you know, this is all
It's like a setup, really, isn't it? It's all set up for like landscape painting as well, you know, like what people would like in their house then. You know, Gainsborough was more to do with emotions and countryside and telling a story.
But then again, this is also telling a story as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also a final note of this, it's that idea of see heaven before it was improved. And this is sort of this is actually against what we've said. Is that some of the poets of the time said, "Oh, we don't want Brown out there. You know, we don't feel what Brown is doing is right, and we want to see the landscape before Brown changes it. We want to see heaven before it was improved." But then again, what he was doing, his art. Capability Brown's art was everything. It was the water, the trees, the ground, the landscaping, the house, the perfection. And basically, in many ways, it was to make nature to be seen, because before it was not seen, and now it is. And in front of us, the vista tells the story. And in other words, Bruegel, Tim Ingold, it all come together quite nicely today. So on that note, right, that was a nice one. That was really good. I just want to see now if there's any questions and if everyone agrees with me. So what we're going to do, oh God, how do I get out of this? Oh, silly sod. All right, there we go. And there we go. And let's do it. Rog, anything you want to say, babe?
Did he develop a lot the use of lawns, or was that there before anyway?
Well, there were lawns did exist. Lawns existed. Lawns have existed through generations.
A feature of it in some way.
But yeah, the lawn is the feature. The lawn. This is the point. Before that, everything was higgledy-piggledy. Now, what he was doing was he was bringing the landscape into the forefront alongside the house, so everything gelled together.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for that, Roger.
We're going to do supper now, so.
Well, Roger, we're nearly finished. Right, Steve, anything you want to say, man?
Two things really just struck me. It seems hugely ironic that what Capability Brown was designing was a more effectively more natural but more stylized view of country houses and gardens. And of course, it was complete fabrication, because there were massive amounts of engineering gone into it. So it wasn't natural in any sense of the word.
No.
It was creating this stylized, natural kind of English art or British arcade garden, but it was actually completely manufactured.
Right.
And the other point probably worth pointing out is that in the Georgian period, Brown would have been working smack bang in the middle of the rise of the British Navy. John Bull, Land of Hope and Glory, Rule Britannia, kind of even William Blake. So in any sort of cut, so you when you talked about a renaissance in terms of the Georgian period, it's quite right. But I think it's important to see Brown in that kind of societal and political sphere. He was part of a much wider movement.
Yes, and I made that clear. We completely invented everything. We invented who we were. We invented our identity. I don't think if the Hanoverians hadn't have taken over, I don't think there would have been a capability Brown. We would have probably kept the colonies in North America. You know, everything would have been completely different. And we would have been more. We would have kept on being Francophiles. We wouldn't have had that identity. We wouldn't have had Land of Hope and Glory. We wouldn't have had the British Navy. What happened? Suddenly, the British establishment said, "Oh Christ, we've got a royal family. We don't like the Jacobites. We've got a royal family, and now we've got to rally around them, and we've got to invent everything."
Correct. Even so far as roast beef and mustard.
Really?
French mustard, yeah.
Those are, you look at these. How quintessentially English is that? Sunday roast beef and mustard.
Yeah.
Those are creations of the Georgians, and it's based primarily as a reaction to European muck. So the food that the Europeans had, it's a complete reaction against it. So this kind of whole John Bull type figure, and you've seen cartoons.
Right.
Well, that was an embodiment of Britishness.
And we're not going to be eating frog's legs anymore. I don't know if we ever did, but it's not the point.
That was the pushback.
Yeah, that was the pushback, and the thing is, we suddenly, and also the Hanoverians, are on the other side of Europe. They're not sort of from France, and they're not from Spain. They're not Habsburgs. They're Hanoverians, and it's very different. Very different land and a very different landscape back there. Okay, Pat, anything you want to say, darling?
No, I found it interesting. I've always heard his name, but I never knew, he did so many. And I didn't know it was the 1700s, so it was good. Thank you.
Capability Brown was still around us all the time, so still with us. And Anne, anything you want to say quickly, because obviously this is
I think that's quite interesting. I'll go and have a look at that period myself. I've heard of all the different, William Blake and John Brown, and sorry, not John Brown, John Bull and all that. So I need to put it in context. Yeah. No, it's interesting, Carl. It's like another fashion, or on the line. Where is it on the line? Just a layer.
No, actually, it's because I said it could be seen as a reactionary to everything that was on the line and continuous. Stephen was right that most of it's been invented, but most of it's been invented from a backdrop of wanting to create a new sense of self and identity, right? Out of the remains of something else. All of these ideas have come from somewhere. They've channeled from somewhere, right? So you can't say it's against what Tim Ingold is saying, because it's channeled. These things haven't come out from thin air. Suddenly, we'll do this. It's got to be completely different from the French. It's got to be completely different from the Italians, right? nothing to do with the Spanish or Portuguese, and you know, nothing to do with the colonialists. It's got to be completely our idea. And when you think about it, in many ways, it's creating, it's a blip in the line, right? But the line does continue.
Yeah.
Okay, Carl, can we finish there? Because I've got to go and do things way beyond that.
Okay then.
See you next week.
Okay then. Okay. Steve wants to. Oh, you didn't let me say goodbye.
Right.
I was just about to say goodbye. But anyway, Steve, quickly say something.
I was going to say the only real irony, of course, is that with a lot of these landscapes that Brown would have designed, he probably didn't see them come to fruition in terms of, because of the maturity required.
Oh yeah.
He would have seen them to a certain degree, but actually he wouldn't have seen them. He wouldn't have seen them to maturity. And your point that I think you made right at the start is those landscapes would have changed. So what we look at now isn't necessarily what was originally envisaged by Brown. Has changed.
That's the point I was just about to make. Where Brown may have said, "Oh, we'll have a sycamore over there. It's only going to grow about a foot high, and it's not going to be in the way of anything," right? So obviously, by the time it's full, it's 10, 15, 20 meters high, right? And it was meant to be maintained in a certain way, and it wasn't. So that's not what capability Brown wanted, right? It's not perceivably what he wanted. The tree was being planted, and it's not come out in the way that it should have come out in the way, but it came out in the way that it should have come out as the people wanted it there and then. So that's the big difference. Everything changes. It's like, for example, it's for example, looking at I've got to come up with a really good example now. It's like the Millennium Dome, right? That's a good one. The Millennium Dome was put up. It was only supposed to be used for a year, and now it's used for everything, right? But it's not actually what it was originally meant to be. There was like it was an expo, wasn't it? There was like it was like a big thing. It was like a big market type bloody thing, right? Now it's an arena, right? So that was not what the Millennium Dome was meant to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is, how much of what he created was meant to be permanent?
Yeah.
Some of these people say, "Oh, we'll just carry this fashion, and I'm going to tear it all down when capability's dead." I don't bloody know. But the fact of the matter is that the point is that it's not. Whatever we're seeing now is in many ways completely different from what capability Brown had created. It's except that it's what we see as what capability Brown created. And the other fight, if you want to make a good metaphor for this, right? When the reason why Van Gogh's work goes for £100 million is that we understand mental illness now, right? Back then we didn't, and nobody cared to buy his work, right? So it's obviously interpretation and understanding of what's being created, not necessarily what was thought of at the time.
No, and it's to do with value as well, what value people put on these things. Somebody must have put more value on Van Gogh, and I don't take too much notice of what people say about painting. I think it's all to do with who's got the money and who decides if it's if it's good, and they've got the money, so they can make it valuable, Yeah,
exactly.
Am I talking backwards? I don't know.
No, you're talking fine. Oh, right. On that note, is there anything else Pat or Anne or Steve wants to say before we finish?
Oh, did you? I don't know if Bill is here tomorrow, Pat.
Oh,
I don't think he.
So I think we better just leave it this week.
Have you contacted Bill?
No. Did you want to go? Did you want to meet up tomorrow, Pat?
Friday?
Yeah.
I got an eye test at 11:30.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, well, I'll take you an hour, won't it? An hour and a half.
Yeah.
Oh,
don't worry. Don't worry, sort it out, girls. Anyway, so we'll see.
Tired
We'll
I
see.
am. I had a busy week this week.
Oh, good.
Anyway,
Anyway,
try another
we'll-
time.
We'll see you next Thursday then, yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. Bye bye.
Okay then. Okay then, Steve.
Steve,
Steve, Ann, and Pat. I'll see you next Thursday.
Okay.
No worries. Thanks, guys. Great.
Okay, guys. Bye. Thanks for joining us. Take care. If there's nothing else, take care. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye. Happy days. Anyway, that was really in depth. Flipping heck. Oh, through my head. There's 119 I wasn't expecting. And it just like, wow, really. Whoa. Anyway, thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh, is there any question chat in the chat box? Chat box. There's nothing in the chat box. Right, okay. Okay, folks. Okay, don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you very much for watching today.